Okay, here's your icebreaker question to get you started for today. Have you ever had to train for a contest or a race? Have you ever had to train for a contest or a race? What kind of contest or race was it, and how did it go? Talk about that with your group, and when you're ready to dive into the scriptures, we'll continue. Today we're up to a point in the book of Hebrews where really it's starting to focus now more on application than it is on understanding the Old Testament and how it fits together with the New. As we start to go into this, we see the writer of Hebrews comparing our faith to persevering in running a race, so that you will not quit, not stop, and will continue on until the end in your faith in Jesus. So read the passage, talk about it with the group. How is persevering in our faith in Jesus a good thing? How does it help us? What is the benefit of persevering in our faith in Jesus? It's been raining today, but I'm still enjoying the outside a little bit. You can see behind here that we've got the volleyball net, the badminton net set up. It's not exactly straight. It's just a backyard set that is set up to have fun because the students were over on Sunday evening, and we had a cookout, and we pitched horseshoes and played volleyball and tossed softball and frisbees, and there were water balloon fights and just all kinds of fun stuff. See, we were playing games, but we were playing them for fun. We weren't playing them to compete with one another. We weren't trying to win a race or continue. But when you start to do things in a way that you're competing, then you start training. You train harder. It takes discipline. It takes perseverance so that you can do the absolute best that you possibly can when you're competing against somebody else who is also very good at whatever sport you are doing. And what we see in here is that the writer of Hebrews starts to talk about perseverance, which you saw in the last passage, but then moves on to start talking about discipline. And the word discipline here doesn't get used just in terms of like having the self-discipline to train for a race. The word discipline also starts to come into play from the perspective of a father disciplining his child. In other words, when you do well, you don't get in trouble. When you don't do well, you do get in trouble with your father. And there's a comparison that starts to go back and forth between our parents and their discipline of us as children, and God disciplining us as His children. Read these passages here that are talking about discipline and talk about that. How is it similar? When God disciplines us, how is that similar to a father disciplining his child? And how is it different with God? What is it about God's discipline that is different than like a human father's discipline? And why is it always good when God disciplines us? Read those passages, talk about that. We'll continue when you're ready to move on. As I said earlier, this chapter is one that starts to move from an understanding of the Old Testament and how that fits together with our understanding of Jesus, and it moves into practical application. There's an awful lot of it here. It's talking about discipline and perseverance, and then it also is talking about being holy as God is holy, and yet living at peace with one another. And that can be a real struggle. mean, when I'm trying to do the right things, to be holy as God is holy, when I'm trying to be righteous, when I'm trying to listen to God and do what God calls me to do, that might be difficult when somebody else is distracting me from that. When I have a good friend who doesn't want to walk together with God, who isn't listening to God, who is falling or walking away from God. And so there's a tension here that happens between holiness and being at peace with everyone. And yet we are called to do both. Of course, it's easiest when the other person also wants to walk with God, and then you can encourage each other and help each other in that. But I'd like for you to read this last passage before you go to your time of prayer, and then talk about these two concepts: being holy, which means walking with God, doing what God says we should be doing, and being at peace with people, even if they don't want to walk with God. How do we do that? Take the time to read the passage and talk about that. I understand that this is a tough application concept, but it's worth taking the time to talk about and to pray about and to pray for one another. When you're done discussing this, go to your time of prayer, praying for one another that we will all strive to be holy as He is holy, so that it is easier for us to be at peace with one another. But pray for one another so that we will be at peace with one another, regardless of where each person is in his or her walk. Know that I'm praying for you as well, that all of us will enjoy walking with God and enjoy walking together with each other. God bless.